Hello everyone, my name is Zach. I am the traveling man coming at you today from the town of Lucca here in the Tuscany region of Italy. We're going to be visiting Lucca, show you this historic city, and then we're going to head down to Pisa, check out that town and also its famous Leaning Tower. So come on, let's get this adventure started. This is the Church of St. Michael, and has been in the town of Lucca for thousands of years now. This town was actually established just a few years after Christ. At one time, Lucca was called the town of 100 churches because there were 93 churches in this small town, and it's very small. As we walk around, you'll see how very small it is. So 93 churches. Today they still have 34, although not all those are actual churches anymore that are actually operating. They're just, the buildings are still here. But this is the Church of St. Michael, and you can see St. Michael up there on top. And then all of these columns here are interesting because they're all different. They all have a different design on them. They all have, up the columns themselves, a different design. They have something different on the tops of each of the columns. So very cool architecture. Our tour guide was telling us that when we get to Pisa, we'll understand that this is sort of a Pisa style building. This is sort of the same style that the buildings that we'll see down there have. But a very beautiful church. So let's take a look inside. Just to give you a bit of geography to understand where we're at, Lucca is located just to the west of Florence and just to the north of Pisa. And because it was located to the west of Florence, that means that the town of Lucca was in between Florence and the ocean. And that's very important because back then, and still today, port cities are very important. A successful city needs a port, especially a seaport, for its commerce and for its trade and to really improve its economy. So this was an issue. And so the people in Lucca lived in fear that the folks in Florence were going to come raid their city and take their city from them. And because of this, the entire city is walled. And it's the original walls. It's one of the only towns in Europe that still has its original walls because they actually never used the walls. No one ever raided the city. No one ever attacked the walls. So the walls are still intact, and as they were when they were built thousands and thousands of years ago. And it's really cool now because, of course, they're not using the walls for protection. They have a promenade all across the top of the walls, and it's just a green space. There's a sidewalk up there, there's trees. It's a beautiful place to walk around, a lot of folks riding bikes. And they said up until about 20 or 30 years ago, people would actually drive cars up there. So very fantastic history and very beautiful walls that they have here in Lucca. So here's another piazza or plaza, of course. In Italy and a lot of these towns, they love sort of the town square. So here is one of the many that I've already seen just in my hour that I've been walking around Lucca. now walking up the wall So you can see the city down here, and then over here is the actual wall itself. Like I said, it's like a greenway now. There's bike paths and things. Here's one of the original entrances inside the city that goes under the wall. And then we can walk right up here just a short ways and be right on top of the wall. And as I mentioned, they used to drive cars up here until 20 or 30 years ago, and you can see the road here, just how wide the wall is. Something built for protection that thankfully for the people of Lucca were never needed. Now made it to the town of Pisa, and we know this because, well, the famous Leaning Tower of Pisa is here behind me. This is actually Miracles Square is what they call it behind me here, and in a few minutes I'll show you the basilica that's here, also the baptistry that's here, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about this tower and why it leans. But you can see here it certainly does lean. You can see there from the top all the way to the bottom that there is a lean to it. It's pretty cool trying to get the people, block the people, so you can get the full effect. I'm actually on the back side of it, so it's not as dramatic as it is from the other side when you first walk up and see it, because I think it's leaning the way that I'm on the back of it, so it's leaning this way. But it is a pretty dramatic lean, and it's been leaning like this since like 1300. So you might be asking yourself a few questions now, like how does it lean? Why are there people in it? So I got you. So the soil here in Pisa is actually very sandy, and there's a lot of water in the subsurface and sand. So the architect who built, he got the first 3 floors built, so you can see roughly this part of the tower built, and then it started to lean, and they were like, uh-oh. The architect, of course, actually fled, because why not? And then they actually went ahead and finished the remaining 4 floors or 4 levels. So you can see those 4 aren't as crooked and aren't leaning as much. They tried to correct a little bit, but it was essentially the first 3 floors of the tower that were problematic. And this is a bell tower for the basilica. The basilica is there. They went in the 90s and put a lot of concrete and things below the surface at the base of the tower to make it more stable. You can actually go up inside. You have to have a ticket for that. The ticket office is right here across the square. 3 different tickets. You can get a ticket for the tower, which you do have to pay for, and it is a timed entry. And then you can get a free ticket for the basilica. And then there's other things around in the square that you can get a ticket for as well. If you are coming, you see all the people over there. Let me zoom in here. See all the people there at the base, and on the other side of the square, there's tons and tons of people. Walk on around here. Just keep walking past the tower around the back side of the basilica to this little square over here, and you see there's much fewer people over here. You can take a lot of pictures across the little grassy square here without a lot of people. So pro tip. So here in Miracle Square, of course back there you can see the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and here is the basilica. And if you notice, this looks a lot like the St. Michael Church that we saw over in Lucca. That's because this was one of the first cathedrals, churches built in this area. They sort of created their own style of architecture here in Pisa that was then replicated all throughout Italy, Europe, and eventually the world. But right across from the church, here is the baptistry. So folks would go to the church over there, and then they would come over here for baptisms, and this was for immersion baptisms. So on the other side of the baptistry back there are the medieval walls of Pisa, and you can see the gate there, or one of the gates to get into the city. And then this building right here is the Campo Santo, or the burial grounds or cemetery that they would use in Pisa. And this was more for the rich people, for the people who had some sort of status within Pisa. Of course, there's a lot of pictures taken here in Pisa. A lot of folks try to get very crafty with their pictures. So you see people doing very risky things, like standing on that rock pillar over there. This is a little bit behind the scenes. I usually try to get people out of my shots and not have a lot of people in my shots, but I just wanted to show you sometimes you see some pretty funny things when you're traveling and you're at such monumental places like the Tower of Pisa, and the pictures people try to take. So that's going to do it for our little taste of Tuscany today with our visit to Lucca and also to Pisa. We got to see the world famous Leaning Tower of Pisa. I hope you've enjoyed, but mostly I hope that you've seen something today that inspires you to get out and see the world, something a little bit different on your own. So many very cool things to see just like this. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next adventure.